They say nothing lasts forever, but some pickup trucks come pretty close. Forget the flashy, fragile machines that spend more time in the shop than on the road. These are the trucks that refuse to die. The ones you'll still see hauling, towing, and grinding along decades after their rivals have turned to rust. So here's the question. Which pickups earned a reputation for being truly unstoppable? Stick around, because the answer might surprise you in ways you don't expect. Toyota Hilux. 1968 to present. If you've ever heard whispers of a truck that can survive the apocalypse, chances are they were talking about the Toyota Hilux. This isn't just marketing hype. Around the world, the Hilux has been tested in conditions so brutal that most vehicles wouldn't last a day. From deserts scorched by 120-degree heat to frozen Arctic tundras, this little warrior just keeps on running. The Hilux was born in the late 1960s, a compact, simple pickup designed to be both affordable and unkillable, and it worked. Farmers, soldiers, construction crews, and even adventurers quickly learned that you could treat this truck like a punching bag, and it would still fire up in the morning. The engines were small by American standards, 4 cylinders that didn't make crazy horsepower, but they were overbuilt. Thick blocks, bulletproof transmissions, and mechanical simplicity meant fewer parts to break and fewer repairs to worry about. The reputation grew so strong that the Hilux turned into a legend. Need proof? In 2003, the TV show Top Gear tried to destroy one. They dropped it from a crane. They set it on fire. They drowned it in the ocean. They even parked it on the roof of a building that was later demolished. And after all that, with just a few minutes of wrench work, it still started and drove away. You can't buy advertising like that. But here's the kicker. While Americans drooled over Ford F-150s and Chevy Silverados, much of the world looked at the Hilux as the real gold standard. In Africa, you'll find Hilux trucks still rolling after 500,000 miles on dirt tracks. In the Middle East, they became infamous for surviving desert warfare. And in Australia, ask any rancher what's in his driveway. It's almost always a Hilux. It's not flashy. It's not luxurious. But it's the definition of dependable. The Toyota Hilux isn't just a truck. It's a survivor. And that's why it sits right at the top of our list. Ford F-150, 10th to 13th generation, 1997 to 2014. Now let's talk about the truck that rules American highways. The Ford F-150. For decades, it's been the best-selling vehicle in the United States, and there's a reason for that. It isn't just about style or marketing. It's about the fact that these trucks last and last and last. The F-150's reputation for reliability really hit its stride in the late 1990s through the early 2000s. These generations weren't overloaded with electronics or gimmicks. Instead, they delivered what people wanted most: strong engines, straightforward design, and a frame that could take a beating. Whether you were towing horses, hauling lumber, or just commuting in a small town, these trucks handled it all. One of the secret weapons behind the F-150's durability was Ford's modular V8 engines. They weren't exotic or flashy, but they were built to keep running even under heavy loads. Ask any mechanic and they'll tell you, get the oil changed. Don't abuse it too badly, and these engines will pass the 300,000-mile mark without breaking a sweat. Add to that the easy availability of parts and repairs in every corner of America, and you've got a recipe for a truck that refuses to quit. But it's not just about the engine. The F-150 built a reputation as a truck for everyone. Contractors loved them because they could trust them on job sites. Families bought them because they were comfortable daily drivers. And truck enthusiasts loved them because they were endlessly customizable. From Workhorse XL trims to decked-out Lariats, there was an F-150 for every budget and lifestyle. And here's the kicker. While Chevy and Dodge fans will argue until the end of time, the numbers don't lie. Ford has kept the F-Series at the top of the sales charts for more than 4 decades. You don't dominate that long without delivering a product people can depend on. So when you see an older F-150 cruising down the highway with faded paint and a bed full of gear, don't be surprised. That's just another Ford still doing its job, year after year, reliable, trustworthy, and absolutely deserving of a place on this list. Chevrolet Silverado, 1500, 2000 to 2006, GMT 800. If you want to talk about a truck that earned loyalty the hard way, you can't skip the early 2000s Chevrolet Silverado 1500, built on the GMT 800 platform. This wasn't some high-tech experiment or luxury machine trying to be everything to everyone. It was a straightforward, hard-working truck that gave buyers exactly what they needed: power, reliability, and durability without the nonsense. Under the hood, Chevy gave drivers a lineup of engines that became legends in their own right. The small block V8s, especially the 5.3-liter Vortec, were nearly indestructible. Owners routinely racked up 300,000 miles without major issues, and some are still on the road today, pushing 500,000. Ask any old-school mechanic, and they'll tell you those engines were built like tanks. Combine that with the strong frame and simple mechanical design, and you had a recipe for a truck that could work all week and still drive across the country without complaint. Farmers loved the Silverado because it was dependable in the fields. Contractors loved it because it could haul gear and survive job site punishment. And families loved it because, unlike older trucks, it offered real comfort inside. Spacious cabins, better seats, and a smoother ride than the square-body Chevys of the past. It was rugged when you needed it, but civilized when you didn't. The Silverado 1500 also earned a reputation for being nearly unkillable in terms of maintenance. Parts were cheap and available everywhere. Break something? There was always a replacement at the local parts store. Need repairs? Every small-town garage knew how to wrench on one. It was the kind of truck that didn't just serve you, it stuck with you, becoming part of the family. Even today, enthusiasts and used truck buyers hunt for clean examples of the GMT 800 Silverado because they know what they're getting. A reliable, trustworthy machine that outlasts most competitors. While modern trucks have gone high-tech with turbochargers and complicated electronics, the old Silverado 1500 proves that sometimes simple is stronger. This wasn't just a pickup. It was a work partner you could count on for life. Toyota Tacoma, 1995 to present. The Toyota Tacoma is the little truck that could and did. While the American market has long been obsessed with full-size behemoths, the Tacoma quietly carved out a legendary reputation as the mid-size pickup that simply refuses to quit. And if you've ever checked the used market, you already know. These trucks hold their value like gold because nobody wants to let them go. First launched in the mid-1990s, the Tacoma picked up where the Toyota pickup, also called the Hilux abroad, left off. It was compact enough for city life, but tough enough for serious off-road duty. Toyota engineered it with the same philosophy as the Hilux. Keep it simple, make it tough, and design it to last decades. And that's exactly what they delivered. The Tacoma became famous for its bulletproof V6 engines, particularly the 3.4-liter and later the 4.0-liter. These power plants didn't just deliver decent performance, they lasted forever. Owners routinely brag about crossing the 300,000-mile mark with nothing more than routine oil changes and basic maintenance. And when they finally do sell, they fetch absurd resale prices, proving just how trusted they are. But reliability wasn't the only thing that made the Tacoma iconic. Off-road enthusiasts quickly realized it was the perfect platform for adventure. Strong frames, four-wheel drive, and endless aftermarket support made it a favorite for overlanding builds. Whether it was climbing mountain trails, crossing deserts, or just hauling surfboards to the beach, the Tacoma always delivered. And here's the kicker. The Tacoma isn't just reliable, it's beloved. People name their Tacomas. They write fan blogs. They keep them running long past when most vehicles would be scrapped. Why? Because the Tacoma isn't just a tool. It's a trusted companion. So if you ever wonder why a 15-year-old Tacoma with 200,000 miles still sells for nearly the price of a new one, the answer is simple. Reliability has a value all its own. And in the world of midsize pickups, nobody beats the Toyota Tacoma. Nissan Hardbody. D21, 1986 to 1997. Now we turn to one of the most underrated heroes of the pickup world, the Nissan Hardbody, officially known as the D21. At first glance, it looks like just another boxy little truck from the 1980s and 90s. But ask anyone who owned one, and they'll tell you the same thing. This truck was built to last. Plain and simple. The Hardbody name came from its double-walled bed construction, which was tougher than anything else in its class. You could throw bricks, gravel, lumber, or scrap metal in the back, and it just shrugged it off. Farmers loved it. Landscapers loved it. Anyone who needed a small but tough hauler quickly figured out that this Nissan was practically indestructible. Under the hood, the Hardbody offered simple, reliable four-cylinder engines like the KA24, as well as a stout V6 option. They weren't powerhouses, but they were dependable. And because the truck was light, it didn't need massive horsepower to get the job done. Add in a manual transmission that was nearly impossible to kill, and you had a truck that could take daily abuse without breaking down. What really set the Hardbody apart was how it handled work and play equally well. Sure, it was tough enough for contractors and tradesmen, but it also became a cult classic among customizers and mini truck enthusiasts. The square styling, simple mechanics, and strong chassis made it easy to modify. Some were lowered and slammed for street cruising, others lifted for off-roading, and all of them kept running. Today, you can still spot Hardbodies in action, especially in rural towns and small businesses. Many of them have faded paint, cracked dashboards, and beds full of dents, but they're still moving, still hauling, still earning their keep. The Nissan Hardbody proved that you don't need to be the biggest truck on the block to earn respect. All you need is toughness, simplicity, and a refusal to die. And that's exactly why the D21 has cemented its place on this list of unbreakable pickups. Dodge Ram 2500 with Cummins diesel, 1989 to 2007. If there's one truck that can run until the end of the world, it's the Dodge Ram 2500 powered by the legendary Cummins diesel. Forget about chrome trim or luxury features for a moment. This was a truck built around one thing, an engine so tough it became the stuff of folklore. Introduced in 1989, Dodge made a bold move by dropping a 5.9-liter inline-6 Cummins turbo diesel into the Ram 2500 and 3500 models. That decision changed the truck world forever. Before this, diesel pickups were clunky and slow. With the Cummins, suddenly you had a truck that pulled like a freight train, racked up insane mileage, and barely flinched under heavy loads. Farmers, ranchers, and contractors flocked to it, and a cult following was born. The secret to its durability was simple. The Cummins engine was originally designed for industrial use. Think heavy equipment and big rigs. When you put that same kind of engine in a pickup, you suddenly had something that could run 500,000 miles with only routine care. Owners still brag about hitting 400,000 or even 600,000 miles on the original motor. But it wasn't just about reliability, it was about raw power. In the 1990s, while other trucks struggled with modest towing ratings, the Ram with Cummins could yank massive trailers, fifth wheels, and equipment haulers like it was nothing. The torque was monstrous, and the truck's reputation as a workhorse spread like wildfire. Of course, the trucks around the engine weren't always perfect. Dodges of that era had their share of rust and transmission complaints. But the Cummins was the crown jewel, and people put up with everything else just to get that motor. Even today, used Ram 2500s with the 5.9 Cummins command high prices because buyers know they're getting one of the most bulletproof powertrains ever put in a pickup. The Dodge Ram 2500 with Cummins wasn't just a truck, it was a revolution. It proved that diesel power belonged in everyday pickups, and it built a legacy of strength that's still unmatched. If you wanted a truck that wouldn't just last, but outlive you, this was the one. Honda Ridgeline. 2006 to present. Here's a curveball you might not expect: the Honda Ridgeline. For years, truck purists sneered at it, calling it not a real truck. Why? Because it didn't ride on a body-on-frame design like traditional pickups. Instead, Honda built it more like an SUV with a bed. But here's the twist: while everyone mocked it, the Ridgeline quietly built a reputation as one of the most reliable trucks on the road. Launched in 2006, the Ridgeline broke every rule. It didn't look like a classic truck. It didn't drive like one either. Instead of a rough, bouncy ride, it felt smooth and car-like. And instead of chasing macho styling, Honda packed it with clever features: a lockable in-bed trunk, a dual-action tailgate, and one of the most comfortable cabins in its class. But the real magic was under the skin. Honda gave the Ridgeline engines and transmissions borrowed from their tried-and-true SUV lineup. These powertrains weren't flashy, but they were practically unbreakable. Owners consistently rack up 200,000 to 300,000 miles without major repairs. And unlike some full-size competitors, the Ridgeline rarely left drivers stranded. Sure, it wasn't built to tow massive fifth wheels or haul construction site loads. But for the vast majority of truck buyers, weekend warriors, homeowners, outdoor adventurers, it was more than enough. Add to that Honda's legendary reliability ratings, and suddenly the Ridgeline looked like the smartest choice in the room. Critics laughed at first, but the Ridgeline earned respect the hard way. It just kept running. While bigger trucks fought with recalls and breakdowns, the Honda soldiered on quietly, proving itself year after year. Today, it consistently ranks at the very top of consumer reliability surveys. The Ridgeline may not fit the stereotype, but maybe that's the point. It doesn't have to be the biggest or the baddest. It just has to keep going. And when it comes to never breaking down, Honda nailed it. Chevrolet CK 1500, 1988 to 1998. If you ask old-school Chevy fans about the most dependable truck era, they'll almost always bring up the late 1980s and 90s CK 1500s. These were the square-bodied workhorses that came right before the Silverado name took over. And they weren't just popular, they were practically indestructible. Launched in 1988, the CK 1500 introduced a new generation of Chevy pickups that blended modern comfort with old-school toughness. They were boxy, simple, and straightforward. No overcomplication, no unnecessary frills. Just a truck built to work, day after day. The engines sealed their reputation. Chevy offered a variety of small block V8s and the legendary 4.3-liter V6, all of which could pile on hundreds of thousands of miles without flinching. The 5.7-liter V8 in particular became a favorite. It wasn't exotic, but it was easy to repair, cheap to maintain, and just wouldn't quit. Owners often boast of crossing the 300,000-mile mark with ease. What made the CK special was that it didn't try too hard. It was affordable, it was dependable, and it was available everywhere. Farmers drove them until the wheels practically fell off. Families bought them as all-purpose vehicles. And enthusiasts loved them because they could handle endless modifications, lift kits, engine swaps, custom paint, you name it, the CK could take it. Even the interiors, while simple, were tough enough to survive decades of abuse. Dash cracks and worn seats? Sure. But mechanically, the trucks just kept running. And if something did break, every parts store in America had what you needed. Today, clean examples of the CK 1500 are highly sought after, especially the Z71 off-road trims. They represent an era when trucks were still uncomplicated, when reliability mattered more than gadgets. The Chevy CK 1500 wasn't glamorous. It wasn't high-tech. But it earned its place in history as one of the most dependable trucks ever built. When you see one rumbling down the road, faded paint and all, know this: it's still here because it refuses to die. Ford Ranger, 1983 to 2012 U.S. models. If you grew up in the 80s, 90s, or early 2000s, chances are you saw a Ford Ranger parked in every other driveway. And not just because it was affordable, it was because this little truck flat-out refused to die. Long before Ford resurrected the Ranger in modern form, the original compact version had already earned legendary status as one of the toughest, most reliable trucks on American roads. Launched in 1983, the Ranger was Ford's answer to the growing demand for smaller pickups. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't meant to dominate highways with size or horsepower. It was designed to be practical, affordable, and durable, and that's exactly what it delivered. The Ranger's strength came from its simplicity. With rugged 4-cylinder and V6 engines, straightforward manual or automatic transmissions, and a no-nonsense chassis, it was the kind of truck you could drive hard and still expect to start every morning. Mechanics loved them because they were easy to fix. Owners loved them because they almost never needed fixing in the first place. And the mileage? Countless Rangers crossed 200,000 miles without issue. Some hit 300,000, or even more. It wasn't uncommon to see an old Ranger with faded paint, rust spots, and a dented bed still hauling tools or towing a small trailer like it was brand new. The Ranger also won hearts because of its versatility. Contractors used it as a cheap workhorse. College kids bought it as a first truck. Families used them as second vehicles. And off-road fans discovered that the compact size made it surprisingly capable on trails, especially with four-wheel drive. By the time Ford discontinued it in the U.S. in 2012, the Ranger had already carved its place in history. Today, you'll still see them on the road. Tough little survivors that outlasted trendier, more expensive competitors. It may not have been the biggest truck in the lineup, but it proved that sometimes smaller really is stronger. Mazda B Series, 1961 to 2009. Here's a truck that doesn't always get the spotlight, but it deserves a standing ovation. The Mazda B Series. Over its long life, from the early 60s all the way to 2009, it quietly built a reputation for being one of the most dependable compact pickups ever sold. And though it never sold in massive numbers like Ford or Chevy, those who owned one will never forget how tough these little trucks were. The B Series was born as a small, no-frills work truck. Mazda's idea was simple. Build something lightweight, affordable, and strong enough to survive daily abuse. And it worked. Farmers, small business owners, and tradesmen around the world relied on these pickups for decades. In the U.S., the B Series gained more attention in the 1970s and 80s, when gas prices made smaller trucks appealing. They weren't fast, they weren't flashy, but they were nearly indestructible. Engines like the B2200 and later models were simple, fuel-efficient, and famously long-lived. Owners tell stories of hitting 250,000 to 300,000 miles with only basic maintenance. And because the trucks were so light, they didn't stress their engines nearly as much as bigger pickups did. The B Series also had a second life in America as a rebadged partnership. In later years, it shared its bones with the Ford Ranger. That meant cheap parts, wide availability, and the same rock-solid dependability. Whether badged as a Mazda or a Ford, the formula was the same. Small truck, big reliability. And just like the Nissan Hardbody, the B Series gained a loyal fan base among customizers. Some were lowered into mini trucks with wild paint jobs, while others were lifted and turned into off-road toys. Through it all, they kept running. By the time production ended in 2009, the B Series had cemented itself as an underdog legend. It may not have the fame of a Hilux or the sales numbers of an F-150. But make no mistake, this was a truck you could trust for life. So there you have it. 10 pickup trucks that earned their reputations the hard way, by refusing to quit. From the Toyota Hilux that survived demolition crews, to the Dodge Ram with its immortal Cummins engine, to the humble Ford Ranger that just wouldn't die, these trucks proved one thing. Reliability is priceless. Which one would you trust to carry you into the future? Drop your pick in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this list, And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of automotive legends that never fade.